أهلا بيكم في قناة الأحياء للصف الثالث ثانوي لغات. و today's lecture we'll continue answering the questions and answers in the book. So let's begin. Give reasons for the following. The spermatogenesis in the bee male is formed by mitotic division, not by meiotic division. We all know that because of the bee male is originated from unfertilized egg, which means haploid number n واحدة بس, by the parthenogenesis process, so the cells of the testis are haploid also. So the spermatogenesis is formed by mitosis division, not by meiotic division. Sometimes the spirogyra recurs the lateral conjugation. Well, this is due to the surrounding of spirogyra with the unfavorable condition, unsuitable environment, like dryness and drought and temperature, where conjugation occurs between the two adjacent cells in the same filament, not in two filaments. The regeneration in the hydra differs from that in the crustacea, because the capacity for regeneration is less by development of the organism. In hydra, for example, if the body is cut into several parts, each part can grow into a completed individual, while in some crustaceans is restricted to regenerate their lost appendages. Conjugation in spirogyra is followed by meiotic division. In order to reduce the number of chromosomes in the zygote of the resulted cells from diploid to haploid, and to be similar to the original cells, which is haploid number. An extract of pollen grains is spread over stigmata of some flowers. For the occurrence of parthenocarpy and production of seedless fruits, wherein extracts of pollen grains have a hormonal activation that stimulates the ovary to enlarge and develop into the fruit. The endosperm nucleus is triploid in number. Due to the fusion between one of male nuclei, N, that resulted from mitotic division of generative nucleus with nucleus of embryonic sac, which is diploid number, that resulted from the union of two polar nuclei, and to form endospermic nucleus, which is triple N, 3N. The cattle sperms are treated by centrifugation. The control of sex of the newborn of the cattle by separation of the sperms with X chromosomes from sperms with Y chromosomes, and then using artificially only one type of these sperms to produce only males. Some prefer males, some prefer females, some prefer males for meat or females for reproduction or milk production. The corpus luteum degenerates during the 4th month of pregnancy. However, no abortion occurs because, of course, the placenta took over secreting hormones instead of the progesterone, instead of the placenta. But before the 4 months, the abortion occurs. The sperms must be of huge number so that fertilization takes place. A huge number of sperms play an important role in. Many of them are lost during their journey to the ovum, so they must be in significant numbers. share in secreting urinase enzyme, which dissolves part of the ovum coat through which one sperm only enters. Therefore, the man is considered infertile if the number of sperms is less than 20 million. You know that per ejaculation number of sperms around 500 million sperms. As soon as the ovum is fertilized, the endometrium and its glands grow due to secretion of estrogen and progesterone for stimulation of the growth of the endometrium that becomes rich in blood supply necessary for the development of embryo along the 9 months of pregnancy. In most mammals, the two testes lie outside the body because spermatogenesis needs cold or lesser temperature than the body, cold temperature than inside the human body. Around, the optimum is 27 or 28 degrees Celsius. And the body's temperature, of course, it's 37 degrees. What happens in the following cases? The corpus luteum degenerates in the 2nd month of pregnancy. Abortion occurs due to degeneration of the endometrium, where degeneration of the corpus luteum stops the secretion of progesterone that's essential of keeping the endometrium, and the placenta is not already formed to take over by the 4th month. The two testes lie inside the human body. Well, this predisposes to infection, infertility, and cancers because spermatogenesis needs a colder temperature than inside the human body. If the two ova are fertilized by two sperms at the same time, formation, this is called fraternal twins. Formation of two zygotes, each one will develop to an independent embryo, differ genetically, and each has its own embryonic sac and separate placenta, forming fraternal twins. Compare between the gametophyte and sporophyte of the plant adiantum. The gametophyte is flat, heart-shaped, has rhizoids to absorb water and salts from the soil, carries male gonads, antheridia, and female gonads, archegonia, at the anterior region, reproduces sexually by gametes, and reduced stage because it disappears after germination of zygote into young sporophyte. While the sporophyte, young plants, grows in moist environment, has adventitious root to absorb water and salts from the soil, carries leaves with many sories. Each sorus contains sporangia that divide meiotically to produce spores, and reproduces asexually by sporogony, dominant stage because it remains after production of spores. Parthenogenesis and parthenocarpy. Parthenogenesis is a case of asexual reproduction in which the unfertilized egg has the ability to develop into a new individual without being fertilized by a male gamete, while parthenocarpy, it's the fruit development, stimulation of the ovary, devoid of seeds, seedless fruits, since no fertilization occurs. Luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. The FSH is follicle stimulating hormone secreted from the pituitary gland, helps for the growth of the ovarian follicles and formation of Graafian follicles. While LH is the luteinizing hormone secreted also from the pituitary gland, stimulates the formation of corpus luteum, means the ejection of the ovum from the Graafian follicle. Compare between the identical twins and fraternal twins. Identical twins produced by one ovum is fertilized by one sperm, and the developing cells separate into two masses of cells. Each one develops into independent embryo. The embryos are identical genetically and share in one embryonic sac and mostly one placenta. While in fraternal twins, two ova are liberated from one or both ovaries at the same time. The two ova are fertilized with two sperms, and each one will develop to an independent embryo. Each embryo differs genetically, and each has its own embryonic sac, and each one has a separate placenta. Some living organisms reproduce by sexual followed by an asexual one in their life cycle. What is the scientific term of this statement, and how can they make use of it? Why is it common between parasites? Mention two examples, one from the plant kingdom and the other from the animal kingdom, in which this phenomena occurs. This is called alternation of generation. Some living organisms, plants and animals, can breed asexually and sexually in an alternation of generation in their life cycle. So they gain from both methods. Their advantages means asexual reproduction is they gain rapid reproduction, and sexual reproduction they gain genetic diversity. These enable them to disperse widely and to conform to the environmental fluctuations. Alternation of generation is common between parasites because parasitic organisms are characterized with short duration and exposure to loss. So they reproduce asexually for rapid reproduction, and so they need to reproduce sexually for genetic diversity, as we said before. These enable them to disperse widely and to conform to the environmental fluctuations. Example from the plant kingdom, Polypodium or Adiantum. Example from the animal kingdom is Plasmodium malaria. Okay, in the uterus, the embryo is surrounded by two types of embryonic membranes. What are they, and what's the importance of each? By two membranes. The inner membrane is the amnion, and the outer membrane is the chorion. Importance of the amnion: surrounds the embryo with fluid to protect the embryo against shocks and dryness. It forms the umbilical cord which connected the embryo with the placenta. Importance of the chorion: surrounds the amnion, protect the embryo, and finger-like projections grow from the outer surface of the chorion to be inserted into the endometrium, in which the capillaries of both embryo and mother touch and intermingle, forming the placenta. Using the opposite drawing, label the numbered organs, how is the seed formed, and how its kind, monocotyledon plants or dicotyledon plants, is determined. What will happen if the flower is not pollinated? What will happen if the flower is pollinated and not fertilized? How can you get seedless fruits artificially? The label, as you see here in this drawing, Okay? About the formation of seeds, after fertilization, the zygote divides mitotically, forming the germination of seeds. Seeds are divided into endospermic or exendospermic seeds. In the case of one cotyledon seeds, the embryo keeps the endosperm till seed formation. So the seeds in this case are called endospermic seeds or one cotyledon seeds. The integuments of ovule and the ovary fuse together, forming a single seeded fruit called grain, such as grains of wheat and maize. زي الشعير والقمح يعني، أو الشعير والشوفان. In the case of exendospermic or two cotyledon seeds, the embryo feed on the endospermic tissue during its development. So the seeds in this case are called exendospermic seeds, and according to that of that plant has to store another food in the cotyledons, hence they called cotyledon seeds. The integuments of ovule harden, forming the seed testa, called seeds, while the ovaries wall integument, which is the integument, is transformed into pericarp. What will happen if the flower is not pollinated? The flower parts wither and drops off without fruit formation. If it's pollinated and not fertilized, this is parthenocarpy takes place to produce seedless fruits. How can you get seedless fruits artificially? By spraying some stimulants such as indole or naphthol acetic acid, or an extract of pollen grains dissolved in water or ether solution over the stigma of the flowers. Write the name of the hormone which leads to the growth of the graphium follicle in the ovary. So it's the FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. The follicle rupture and the ovum liberation. This is ovulation, which means luteinizing hormone. The appearance of male and secondary sex characters. It's the male sex hormone, which is testosterone. The inhibition of the ovulation and growth of the endometrium. This is the responsibility of progesterone. Okay? What's meant by each of the following? Breeding cycle. Breeding cycle, generally it occurs in placental mammals. It's a certain period where the ovary becomes regularly active in adult female. It's periodic and coincides with the sexual function or on mating or reproduction. It varies among various animals. Annual, for example, in lions and tigers, 2 cycles per year, like cats and dogs, and frequently per month, such as rats and rabbits, and every 28 days in human beings. Parthenogenesis, again, is a case of asexual reproduction in which the unfertilized egg has the ability to develop into a new individual without being fertilized by a male gamete. Parthenocarpy is the fruit development, stimulation of the ovary, devoid of seeds, seedless fruits, since no fertilization occurs. Double fertilization, in which one male nucleus fuses with the egg, both are haploid, to form the zygote, which is diploid, 2N, that divides into embryo, 2N. Second male nucleus fuses with the nucleus of the embryo sac, which is 2N, resulted from the union of 2 polar nuclei to form the endosperm nucleus, which is 3N. So this process is called triple fusion. Okay? The corpus luteum. Corpus luteum formed inside the human ovary during the menstrual cycle and pregnancy. During the ovulation phase of the menstrual cycle, the anterior pole of the pituitary gland secretes luteinizing hormone, which stimulates the ovum to liberate from the Graafian follicle to fallopian tube. So Graafian follicle is transformed into corpus luteum, which secretes progesterone hormone, and the progesterone hormone acts to increase the thickness of the endometrium and its blood supply, and stops or inhibits ovulation. During pregnancy, if the ovum is fertilized, the corpus luteum remains to secrete progesterone hormone till the 4th month, and the placenta takes over, and the corpus luteum degenerates to the corpus albicans, as we said before. Triple fusion. One process in the double fertilization in the flowering plants, in which a male nucleus fuses with the nucleus of the embryonic sac, which is the 2N, that resulted from union of two polar nuclei to form the endosperm nucleus, which is 3N. False fruit. The false fruit is the fruit in which any part except its ovary enlarges, storing food, as in the apple, for example, where the receptacle share in the fruit formation. Amnion. The amnion is the inner membrane that surrounds the embryo, and its importance surrounds the embryo. It surrounds the embryo with fluid and serves to protect the embryo against shocks and dryness, and forming the umbilical cord which connected the embryo to the placenta. Show by drawing only the stages of maturation of plants. Be careful, it's maturation of plants ovule, in order for the plant's flower to become ready of fertilization. And it's, as you can see here, and you must practice on drawing this. Well, that's it for the questions and answer on reproduction. I hope you got the maximum benefit from this lecture, and thank you very much for watching.